RMJ Movie Reviews back again. This time with another on-the-fly movie review of The Dark Tower, starring Idris Elba and the McConaughey man himself, Matthew McConaughey. Well, The Dark Tower. I am, as you all saw, I have a review for Sleepwalkers and Pet Sematary. So, I have been a fan of Stephen King's work for a long time. Yes, I've seen Maximum Overdrive, starring the great Emilio Estevez, and I saw Maximum Overdrive back in the 80s on the Showtime cable network. Yes, of course I've seen Stephen King's It, which I believe I talked about. I saw the Tommyknockers, I saw The Stand, I saw both versions of The Shining. I am a fan of the man's work. I even saw The Night Flyer too. It's a pretty cool little movie. Underrated, I think. I'm a fan of his work. The Dark Tower, yes, I had heard of before, but I had heard of The Dark Towers way back when. Those of you guys who were mid-30s and early 40s, remember how like back in the 90s when Stephen King, the TV movies were really kicking in, they had like those audiobook things they used to advertise for his books on regular TV. You all had to really have been children of like the cable networks to really. I remember they used to air them a lot on USA. I remember back in the day. But anyway, I had heard of The Dark Towers through those advertisements for the Stephen King audiobooks. But I wasn't really like overly familiar with the story, but I had heard of it. So, I've matter of fact, never read a Stephen King book in my life. The only one I ever even cracked open was It. And I had seen that I think I found it at the library or at Borders, like way, way, way back. And look, for me, I like to read books, but it's just like, I don't know. Even when something's interesting to me, I just can't get into it. It's just reading it. It just doesn't, for me, it doesn't do anything to me. For me. But either way, I am familiar with the story. I have no connection to the material. I don't know it inside and out like that. So I'm just going into this movie cold. There's been a lot of negative things I've heard about this movie. Reshoots, poor test screenings, blah, 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 blah. But when I had heard they were making this into a movie, I didn't have a here nor there excitement or not about it. But when I heard Matthew McConaughey was playing the devil, the man in black, I was like, sign me up. Because anytime Matthew McConaughey plays intense and dark, I'm on board. His romantic comedy stuff, yeah, that's cool, but give me dark, intense, true detective, frailty Matthew McConaughey. That's what I'm talking about. And when I heard Idris Elba was in, I like Idris Elba. I think he's very charismatic. And I'm like, cool, he plays the gunslinger. Sign me up. As it stands, I was fine with the movie. I'll get into kind of the issues I had with it. But as far as, since I was going into this movie cold and I like both actors who were in it, I was fine with what I got. As far as I'm concerned, this is pretty much in the vein of Masters of the Universe 1987, Fish Out of Water story, Last Action Hero, Never-Ending Story. It all, little boy going into a fantasy world, and the fantasy world comes into the real world. It's all within those kind of, the through line of those three movies I just mentioned. And I will say The Dark Tower I did mention Last Action Hero and I mentioned Never-Ending Story. Unfortunately, in this case, The Dark Tower kind of more is leaning towards, and I know guys, this is mean, kind of more towards Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren. I mean, it's kind of that quick and short and really just kind of a punctuation mark to a universe that we don't really get to see much of. We get hints, but not really much more of this grander universe. And that's exactly what the 1987 movie of Masters of the Universe did. You kind of get a little bit of a hint that there's something bigger, but we never get to see it before then. We're in the real world. That's the case here. But because I don't have a connection to the source material, that didn't anger me as it probably will fans who are fans of the hardcore material, because to my understanding this is like 8 books or something like that, so there's a lot here that they seem to have tucked and cut and kind of smashed together. Matter of fact, the best way I can describe this movie is, I think I've done this before in other reviews, if you have a 12-page book report that's due, and you basically do it the night before it's due. So anybody who's ever done something like that, we know how those kind of reports turn out. They kind of turn into like, when the teacher finally gives the final grade, it usually turns into a C+ paper, in which case you go, yeah, I didn't get a D, I didn't get the greatest, I didn't get an A or a B, but I didn't get the lowest of a D or a F. I just kind of got something that's right there in the middle. That's pretty much what The Dark Tower is, the movie version. Matthew McConaughey chewing up the scenery, and I love when he plays dark. I think there's really hints of a really better performance here, but again, the material that he has to work with, you know, this ain't his fault, you know. Idris Elba, same thing. You know, he's doing the gunslinger, he's shooting people, and, you know, he's got that handsome face, you know, and he's really, you know, again, there's hints of a better performance. This is what you got. The movie is not really given time to breathe. It's just moving so quick. You don't really... You're in this world where you're kind of... The audience is playing catch-up. Like, I'm not familiar with the book, so I'm kind of like, what the hell is going on? You know, so I'm just playing catch-up. But I had already read some reviews that said the movie was going to do that, so I just pretty much said, I'm going to turn my brain off, and I'm just going to roll with what they got. So I just enjoyed the action sequences that, you know, again... You know, the action sequences are fine. You know, they're okay. The musical score, for something like this, there should have been more of a distinct kind of, you know how like in the Lethal Weapon movies from the 80s, you know, you kind of get that saxophone that kind of gives it that identity. You know, you don't really get that here. You know, there's no really identity. Like Matthew McConaughey's character doesn't have a theme. Idris Elba's character doesn't have a theme. The little boy and his mom don't have a scene. The movie just kind of just goes bam, 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 bam. I'll compare it to Passenger 57 from 1992 with Wesley Snipes, right? That's a very short film. I think that film is somewhere 85 minutes or something like that. But it's another case of a movie that's just like, you know, it's over before it begins, you know, and that's the case here. I think this is brainless fun, you know. So kind of like when you eat a Snickers bar and it ain't really a good full course meal, but it's just kind of something that just give you that quick little sweet and you're done with it. That's The Dark Tower, you know. And the negative is pretty much everything I mentioned. You know, you're just kind of thrusted into this world, you know. It's too quick. It feels so much larger than what's happening on the screen. Everything just happens too quick. So those are my issues with it. This is a larger, grander story that needed more time to breathe, and it needed to be more thought put into this. As it stands right now, this is just in my opinion, a poorly condensed version of a larger universe. You know, but you got two professionals who are really putting their charisma. To me, Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey's charisma is what carries this movie, because if these two weren't in it, I think it'd be harmless fun, but I think they push it a little bit higher. But again, brainless fun. Harmless, you know, not painful to watch, you know, but not what it could have been. But, you know, turn your brain off, no expectation, you'll have a decent time. So that's my review of The Dark Tower. Thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, leave comments down below, and don't forget the little ding-a-ling-ling. Hit that little bell so you can be notified when I come up with new reviews and comments and all that other stuff. So, RMJ Movie Reviews, I will see you folks soon.